Okay, hi everybody. My name's Craig. I work for Speyside Wildlife, and I've been lucky enough to be a guide for the last 20 odd years, mainly in the Scottish Highlands and the Cairngorms National Park. I'm just going to give you a brief talk tonight, a quick talk on some of the great birding that's to be found on the Outer Hebrides. The Outer Hebrides is an island chain way out to the west of Scotland, and it's made up of 50 islands, of which only 12 of them are inhabited. We're going to have a quick look at three in particular tonight: North Uist, Benbecula, and South Uist. These are islands that I've been lucky enough to visit many times over the years. The Outer Hebrides really are islands right out on the edge, and they have some breathtaking scenery and some really first-class bird watching and wildlife. Along with some incredible skies. This is a view of a traditional black house. They're dotted around the island chain. This is probably the best preserved of the black houses, and this one's on North Uist. It also has some brilliant road signs like this one. Although the rush hour traffic can be a bit of a nightmare. This is the RSPB Visitor Reserve at Balranald. It's a hub for most of the visiting bird watchers on the islands, and it's a great place to catch up with all the latest news and sightings. Because crofting is the traditional way of farming out here, birds like corn bunting can still be seen in reasonable numbers. The Outer Hebrides have long been a haven for corn bunting, but even here, sadly, they're starting to show a worrying decline. There were just 49 territorial males in 2013 compared to 111 in 2006, so it's quite a sharp decline. And now it's only on parts of North Uist like Balranald and some areas of South Uist. There's a last few remaining birds remaining. This is the beach at Balranald. It's probably one of my favourite spots on earth. It's a brilliant place for bird watching. And as you can see from this picture, it's a really busy beach most days. On this particular day, the only thing other than masses of birds that were down on the tide line was an otter that ran down out of the sand dunes on the left and down into the sea. So it really is an incredible place. In the spring, huge numbers of migrant birds pass through the islands, heading north to breed. These are pale-bellied Brent geese. They stopped off to refuel on the islands on their way north, and they're going to be breeding in places like Greenland, Svalbard, and Canada. The beaches can be covered with quite a lot of seaweed, and that seaweed is a real attraction for birds like this white wagtail. They're attracted by all the thousands of small flies and insects. And you'll also find birds like the northern wheat here on the beaches, especially in the spring. The beaches are also a great place to find wading birds. You'll get huge numbers in the spring. Birds like dunlin, sanderling, turnstone, and ring plover. And they're also passing on their way through to Arctic breeding grounds. These are mostly dunlin in this photo. And as you look at the beaches, there's some days they're just literally teeming with birds. It's sometimes like a moving carpet of waders down there. It really is some sight. The great thing about going out to the islands in the spring is you'll get to see some of these wading birds in their full spring finery, like this dunlin here. It's in full breeding plumage. And as you search through the flocks, you'll sometimes find other things. This is a purple sandpiper that's got a turnstone for a companion. And you might be lucky enough to pick out one of these. This is a summer plumage little stint. They're quite regular in very small numbers through the islands in the spring, especially during May. You also get large flocks of sanderling passing through. Again, they're in summer plumage. They look completely different to their winter plumage. And waders really are great travellers and make incredible migrations every year. Some of these birds in this photo may well be stopping off on the Outer Hebrides, having wintered as far away as Namibia in southern Africa before returning north to breed. And they found that most of the sanderling that pass through the islands will be breeding up in Greenland. You also get good numbers of bar-tailed godwits passing through. And in some springs, you'll get large numbers of black-tailed godwits, and they're en route to their breeding grounds in Iceland. The Outer Hebrides is also a brilliant place for sea watching and also for seeing visible migration happening. This is the view out from the beach at Balranald, looking out to Chile, which is part of the Monarch Islands group. It's just to the west of Balranald and about 4 miles offshore, and you can just see the dawn sun just picking up the lighthouse lantern glass there. And during the spring months, especially May, is a great time to see great northern divers like this, and they're pretty much all in summer plumage. Pretty much every bay or bit of coast you look at has got a great northern diver or two just hanging around. What you're really hoping for in the spring on certain days is some onshore winds, especially from the west or the northwest, and that can push passage seabirds much closer into shore and give you a chance to see some of those birds that are passing up the coast on their migration. You'll get reasonable numbers of great skua, like this one, passing up the coast. And also Arctic skewers. But what you're really hoping for is that those same winds will bring some rarer skewers to the close to shore, such as these Pomarine skewers, which are just passing through underneath the Monarch Lighthouse. These are much rarer birds, and spring on the Outer Hebrides is you hope for a little bit of an onshore wind that will bring these birds closer, and hopefully you'll get to see them. The Pomeranian Skewers come in two colour morphs, the paler pale morph and the much rarer dark morph bird. You can see there's a dark morph bird in the sort of top middle of the picture there. The Pomeranian Skewers also have these incredible spoon-shaped tails, which are caused by two twisted central tail feathers, and they really stand out at a distance. And on a good day, when the winds are just right, you can get literally hundreds of skewers going through in just a few hours. And really, if your luck's in, you might be lucky and start to see long-tailed skewers coming through as well. These are much rarer of the two. Absolutely amazing looking birds with that tail streamer. And watching flock after flock of long-taileds coming in with some starting to circle up over your head and then powering off north is what spring birding dreams are made of on the Outer Hebrides, I always think. Spring's also a great time to look at the machair, which is this unique, rare habitat that the Outer Hebrides is famous for. Machair is fertile, low-lying dune pasture land, and it's made up of a mixture of wind-blown shell sand and peat, and it starts to bloom in the spring with an incredible array and diversity of wildflowers. The Uists are also one of the last strongholds for the corncrake, which has declined drastically over the last 150 years, mainly due to changes in agriculture. But thankfully, the numbers of corncrake have been recovering slowly in Scotland after decades of decline, and the Outer Hebrides is still one of the best places in the UK to see them. More often you'll get a view like this of a craking bird as it pokes its head up amongst the vegetation, but they are incredibly secretive and skulking. But with patience, you can see them, and we're lucky enough to see them pretty much every year we're out there. If you're quiet and patient, occasionally a corncrake will move out of those patches of cover, and you'll get a view like this out in the open. And when they move very low to the ground with their necks stretched out, and when they decide to, they can run incredibly quickly. They tend to run everywhere, corncrakes, when they arrive on their breeding grounds, but occasionally you'll see one out in flight like this bird. And it's been found through satellite work that the Scottish birds wintering in the Congo in Africa before they arrive back in the islands to breed in April. But when you see them, you wouldn't think they'd be able to cover that sort of huge distance. But occasionally when they do fly, they're very strong, powerful flyers, a bit like a wading bird. And it's often then you'll get that glimpse of that lovely russet red chestnut wing. There are also a few pairs of hooper swans over summering on the Outer Hebrides. And since about 2007, a few pairs have stayed on and breed now annually out there. The machair of the US holds 12 breeding species of wading bird in nationally important numbers. And it also includes a few pairs of the rare and beautiful red-necked phalarope. They really are stunning looking things. And in the spring, the islands are literally alive with breeding waders. Around 10% of the British breeding population of redshank, like this bird, are on the Uist, so it's an incredibly important place for its breeding waders. And it also holds about a quarter of the UK's breeding population of this bird, the ring plover. And also about a quarter of British breeding dunlin as well. You'll also find snipe out there on the islands. They breed in large numbers. You'll often find them sitting around on the fence posts like this bird. And along with oyster catchers as well. Pretty much every field and little bit of pasture you look at has got oyster catchers in it. And thankfully still good numbers of lapwing. Again, a bit like the oyster catcher, pretty much every other field you look at has got lapwing in it. And of course the spring is a great time to also see their chicks. This is a lapwing chick. And you'll also see redshank chicks as well. Or maybe even a snipe with chicks, like this photo. The islands hold 8 breeding species of diurnal birds of prey. The moorland and upland areas of the islands are great places to see fantastic birds like this hen harrier. There's between about 30 and 45 breeding pairs of hen harriers on the islands, and the males like this are absolutely stunning birds, almost ghostly looking. There's also around 23 pairs of white-tailed eagles on the islands. White-tailed eagle is the 4th largest bird of prey in the world, and in flight it's often described as looking like a flying barn door with huge broad wings, but only a very short tail. The females are absolutely huge with a wingspan of around about 8 feet. The islands also have a good population of golden eagles, around about 80 to 100 breeding pairs throughout the islands. And there's also stunning owls such as short-eared owl, like this one. You can encounter them all across the islands really. Though the short-eared owls will come down to areas around the coast and crofting land to hunt, there's obviously lots of food there available for them in the spring. They're such superb, fierce-looking birds when they fly straight at you like this one. And if you're very lucky, you might encounter this owl on the islands. The stunning snowy owl. Recently, the Outer Hebrides has become a national hotspot for this magnificent owl. And the islands are now probably one of the best places in the UK to try and see this rare bird. I've been lucky enough to find 2 in previous springs out there, and I've seen about 6 out there now in total. they'll often turn up out on the machair in the spring, a bit like the short-eared owls. They come down there to hunt. There's a plentiful supply of rabbits and also wader chicks for them to feed on. And normally it's all the birds that put you onto them, like these common gulls. They're mobbing the snowy owl as it flies off. But they really are incredible, breathtaking birds when you see them in flight like this one. Being islands right out on the edge, the Hebrides also attract their fair share of other unusual birds, especially during spring and autumn migration, like this drake ringneck duck from North America. And this buff-breasted sandpiper, which is also a vagrant from America. And during the spring, you can also occasionally find migrant trips of dotterel like this one, which stop off on the machair, and they're often mixed in amongst flocks of golden plovers. And even birds such as ruff, like these, they'll sometimes stop off on the islands on their way through, migrating north. And sometimes they'll even set up a temporary lek if there are females there as well. Some of the other regular spring migrants the islands attract are birds like turtle dove, like this one, which we came across in one of the local crofts gardens. This is a partly melanistic bird. It's got black feathering on its back, and I've certainly never seen a turtle dove before looking like that. Or you might be lucky enough to find a bird like this stunning summer plumage snow bunting, which again is heading up to the high Arctic to breed. And also common crane. This bird arrived on Benbecula in the spring and spent the summer on the islands. So you just really never know what you could find when you're out bird watching. One year while we were looking for corncrakes, we even came across this hoopoe. It's not a bird I ever expected to see on the Outer Hebrides. The evening's a great time to be out and about. You get some fantastic sunsets looking out to the west. And it's that time of day when the sky can literally be alive with the sound of drumming and displaying snipe overhead. It's also at that time of night that corncrakes really begin calling in earnest. It really is a magical time to be out and about. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed my whistle-stop tour of the Outer Hebrides, and I'll leave you with this view looking west out to the lighthouse on the Monarchs as the light begins to fade, and I'll say thank you for listening in for my talk. Hello. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that very short talk. I've only really given scratched the surface really of the Outer Hebrides. It's very difficult to cram it all into a short sort of 10-15 minute presentation, but hopefully you all enjoyed that. We've had a few questions come in. Somebody asked whether the Outer Hebrides is good for mammals, sea mammals, and it is. It's a great place for mammals. You get there's a very good population of both grey and common seals all around the coast. You can encounter them, and again, it's very good for otters. You often bump into otters, when you're not even looking for them. Sometimes you can be just on the coast enjoying your lunch, and suddenly an otter pops up in front of you. So yeah, it's a great place for seals and otters. Occasionally you'll get things like basking shark, especially later in the season, around about now. And also I have seen those as early as sort of May time when we're over there in the spring, but also through to sort of June and July. And also cetaceans as well, things like white-beaked dolphins, minke whales, some of the rarer cetaceans out there as well. So it's all out there really when you're on the coast, and it's always worth keeping half an eye open. You never really know what you're going to see really. Somebody else asked about the weather in the spring. It's generally quite good in the spring. You can get a bit of rain, obviously, it's the UK. Sometimes a little bit windy, but there's often days in between, even between periods of slightly wetter weather when it's fine and dry and sunny. with a little bit of a breeze. There's nowhere finer, really. And in fact, some years we've been out there in May and had really quite warm weather. So, yeah, the weather can be actually pretty good in May. Somebody else asked about how long the ferry is over to there. It's quite a short crossing, actually. If you're travelling from the top end of Skye, which is where we generally go over in the spring, it's about an hour and 3/4 on the ferry. That's a nice crossing, and it's actually a good crossing for seeing cetaceans and other seabirds as well, things like puffins, shearwaters and things like that from the ferry. So it gives you a bit of time on the boat to see some species actually at sea. So that's good. We also had a question about where we stay when we're over there. We tend to use quite small family-run hotels. The one on North Uist we use is in a beautiful position at the top end of North Uist. And you get wonderful views out to the west there, looking offshore, lovely sunsets from there. And we've often had birds such as hen harrier and short-eared owl literally hunting just literally right outside the front door of the hotel. So it's a wonderful spot just there looking west. So yeah, we've had a few good questions come in there. I don't know whether there's any more questions at the moment. Somebody asked whether we visit cultural areas too, like stone circles. We do indeed. Outer Hebrides has got a really rich and long history, stretching back thousands and thousands of years of human occupation out there. So yeah, we do call in at some of the stone circles, especially on North Uist and South Uist. We've got stuff from the Bronze Age and from the Iron Age as well that we look at. So yeah, we do call in at some of the cultural sites. Are Corncrake numbers increasing? Somebody's asked. They are actually. They're doing quite well. I'd say they're sort of pretty steady at the moment. The numbers obviously are not as they used to be in the past. In the UK, it used to be a very widespread bird. It used to breed all across the UK in hay meadows. But of course, with changes in agriculture, birds like corncrakes have got pushed out to the fringes now, which is why they tend to have a stronghold on the Outer Hebrides. But thankfully, the farming out there is quite sympathetic to corncrakes. And so, yeah, the numbers are holding up out there. So, yeah, if you really want to see a corncrake in the UK, the Outer Hebrides is the place to go and see them. Somebody else has asked, does it get dark in the spring or stay quite light overnight? It does stay light till very late, actually. The sunsets can be quite late, sort of after 9 o'clock normally. And the sun goes down, it takes such a long time because you're so far west. It seems to just go on and on and on. So you get this wonderful evening light before it finally gets dark. So, yeah, it does stay light till quite late in the spring. I'm just seeing if we've got any more questions here. I think that's it. Is the walking quite flat? Somebody said. It is actually. It's very good. It's good coastal walking. You're generally on and near the coast a lot of the time, or on good paths. So yeah, it's good walking underfoot. So nothing too strenuous, not too much uphill on the Outer Hebrides. So I think that's it for the questions. I can't see any more questions here. So with that, I'll wrap things up and say thank you very much for joining us again. Do join us again tomorrow. We've got another talk from Duncan. He's going to be giving you a talk on the amazing Inner Hebrides. So join us about 6 o'clock tomorrow for that talk, and hopefully we can see you there. Thanks very much again.